Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Borkou in Chad. My cats are crying outside the door. I locked them out. Sorry, kitties, not tonight. I'm very excited to talk about this department of Chad because it includes what I think is one of the most beautiful sceneries in Africa, which is the Tibesti Mountains. You can see the majority of the mountains are in the Tibesti department, which we'll talk about on another day. But there are some special places here in the mountains, particularly right here. You can see Emikusi. This is not only the highest point in Chad, but the highest point in the entire Sahara Desert. And it's not just any mountain, it's an extinct shield volcano. It's very big and impressive. There's even a village in the crater. It's pretty awesome. It's a neat big mountain. This whole little mountain area is just very unique. You know, this area of the Sahara is very windswept because there's not a lot there to stop the wind. So when the winds reach these mountains, it creates all kinds of neat rock formations and things like that. It's pretty interesting, I think, for me. You can see here, very interestingly on my map, there's Borkou to designate the department, and then it says Borkou again right down here. And this is to highlight the historic Borkou region. And most of this Borkou region, once upon a time, was underwater. I guess this goes into history, but we'll just touch on it now since it also has to do with geography. The Borkou region was once a very large lake, and it was part of a lake system which was centered around Lake Chad, which is just, I don't think you can see it, just down here, Lake Chad, which we're going to talk about more in tomorrow's video. Lake Chad, or at this point in history, back during the times of very early humans, it was known as Mega Lake Chad, because this was all very wet and lakey. And we know this as a fact not just because of the archaeology and the study of the soil and the sand and the rocks here, but we've actually found cave art that depicts humans fishing, using harpoons to fish, and using boats to sail out. So once upon a time, this was all underwater, not so now. This area has been highly desertified. It is now just a lot of sand. There's a very interesting patch of desert here in Borkou department down here. It's not designated on my map, but it's known as the Bodele Depression. And it's an area that is very windswept, let's say. The winds there are pretty extreme. And a lot of the sand here is found in many other parts of Africa. Moving this way, you can find it in Sao Tome and Principe, and you can find it all the way in the Amazon rainforest. In fact, the sands from this part of Chad and other parts of the Sahara too help fertilize the Amazon rainforest and make it a huge, lush, green paradise that it is today. Isn't that so interesting? Going across the Atlantic over to Brazil. The capital of this department is Faya, also known as Faya Largeau, and we'll talk about why that is in history. It is the largest city in northern Chad. We'll take a brief look at it on Google Earth. There isn't actually many slideshows in this department, in this place on Earth. So normally it would be a place I would skip, but just from above, it's so stunningly beautiful. I have to show you guys. So we'll look at Faya from above. we'll look at the mountains, and we'll look at the beautiful desert sands. But let's talk about history. Of course, we already talked about the ancient humans here. Another topic that we're going to talk about tomorrow is the Kanem-Bornu Empire. Tomorrow we're going to go to Borno in Nigeria, which was formed after the collapse of Kanem-Bornu, but the Kanem-Bornu Empire stretched all the way through here up into Libya, and of course down into Nigeria as well. And it was very powerful in its prime, but would break apart and collapse in history. Not terribly important to the history of this area, but it came up in my research for the next area, so I thought I'd mention it. The one ancient culture that is important to this area is the Uadai, which you can see. Let me slide this up again. Hopefully you can see. It's on the very edge of my map. The Uadai department down here in Chad. I hope you can see that. Uadai. Because this was their heartland right here, but it stretched up throughout Chad. Uadai was a Muslim sultanate. I'm all out of sorts here. There we go. A Muslim sultanate ruled by the Sanusi. And what's interesting about that is that the Western world had no idea that this culture existed until about the 1870s, when French explorers came in and realized that there was a whole blossoming civilization here in the desert. It makes sense though, since this is kind of in the middle of nowhere. You wouldn't just happen upon this area just randomly, because there are miles upon miles upon miles upon miles of just straight sand surrounding it. We're deep in the heart of the Sahara here. They were annexed by France in 1899. You know, the European colonial powers were gobbling up as much as Africa as they could, and France claimed all of what's today the country of Chad. And of course, the people here weren't too fond of that idea. They declared a jihad against the French, and they fought the French as much as they could until they came to an agreement in 1912, kind of like a peace agreement, I suppose. In 1913, a Frenchman named Colonel Largeau captured the town of Faya, and he decided to rename it after himself, Largeau. Of course, the people here still called it Faya, but Largeau is what it was known as legally, politically, for many decades until Chadian independence. So the city is officially, they just decided to keep the name. It's officially Faya Largeau, but almost everybody just calls it Faya. I was very hard-pressed to find any source that called it Faya Largeau. It's just mostly known as Faya. That's how it's named for a very, very long time, of course. This region saw a lot of warfare throughout the 1970s and 1980s, mainly due to Libya, or specifically Muammar Gaddafi. You can see this area here called the Aouzou Strip, which is pretty much just like literally like the map says, this area of Chad, which is just rocks and sand. There's not a lot there. Same with here in southern Libya. It's just rocks and sand. Very important, though, I forgot to mention. I left this out of my notes, but I remember it, how the Uadai were important in this area because there was a pilgrimage path for the Hajj toward Mecca that went through here, so they would protect the travelers. So this area was very protected for that, for anyone coming from West Africa heading toward Mecca. So even though, you know, it's just rocks and sand, it had its importance. But as you can see on my map, the line designating the border between Libya and Chad is a straight line. And you know what we say on my channel. If you're a longtime viewer, you know what I'm about to say. That if you see a straight line, there's nothing there. There's nothing to denote a border. There's no river. There's no mountain range. There's nothing there to separate one place from another because, like I always say, Mother Nature does not make straight lines. People do. So this border was drawn up by the French. They said this is where Libya and Chad are located. But Libya did not agree with this. Specifically, Muammar Gaddafi did not agree with this. He thought that the line should be more like down here and that this area should be part of Libya. So he went and invaded it in 1975. And I believe we talked about this when we discussed Bahr el-Ghazal, the department just to the south here, because they invaded this whole area down into the south. Chad would eventually fight back. They would recapture Faya in 1980. Libya would reinvade in 1983, insisting that no, this is ours. And just out of spite, since you won't give us what we want, we're going to invade as much as possible. So in 1987, Chad fought what's known as the Toyota War, thusly named because the Chadian soldiers would ride through the desert in Toyotas. And it was, I guess, like the most distinguished or the most recognizable part of the war were all the Toyotas going through the desert to fight off the Libyans. And they were successful, and they managed to reestablish this border. I don't think Gaddafi was pleased about it, but, you know, he wasn't about to try a third time, I suppose. He had a lot of other issues to deal with in the 1980s, let's be real. So this has been the border ever since. Border disputes are messy, aren't they? But yeah, that is essentially the history of the Borkou department. I feel like I'm leaving something out though, but I don't think I am. I just feel like I am. Do you know that feeling when you're like, I'm not totally finished? Maybe I'll think of it when we're in Google Earth. I'm pretty sure I got everything, but I just have that gut feeling, you know. So let's find out. Why don't we head over to the tablet and check out this beautiful corner of the desert on Google Earth. So here we are in Chad. I can't for the life of me get Google Earth to highlight just the Borkou department, at least its current borders. It thinks it's just this, which it's not. It goes up into the mountains. So I would say here we are in Borkou department, but I guess we are in Borkou department. But let's of course start by zooming out so you can see exactly where we are in the world. Here is Northern Africa and the beautiful Sahara Desert. I know the Sahara has this, I guess, like stereotype image that it's just huge sand dunes, and there are lots of places where that is true. You can see a lot of that in Algeria, for example. Up here, it's just sand. But the Sahara is actually full of all kinds of incredible treasures. One of the best ones is the Rashat structure over in Mauritania. See it? Also known as the Eye of the Sahara. Very beautiful and remarkable. You can only see it from above. We didn't know it existed until astronauts were up in space and looked down and went, what in the world is that? But there are all kinds of treasures here in the desert. And we're going to look at one of them tonight. But let's start off in Faya. There's Faya Larchot. And, you know, you hear, oh, it's the biggest city in northern Chad. And you must think, oh, it must be pretty tiny. But it's actually pretty busy, bustling. They weren't kidding when they said it's the largest city. It just started pouring rain outside. I wonder if you can hear that. Oh, my goodness. Very appropriate for us being in the desert. it's a very big bustling city. All the little houses here, all different kinds of supermarkets popping up. Marché in Jemena. What's over there? Marché Le Rouge? Is that what it says? Marché the Rouge? Yeah, it's of course mosques. Oh, that's an église. That's a church. That's a Catholic church. But there's mosques. I saw one. It was really, actually, I think it had a slideshow. Not a very big one, but it was there. There's the airport. Oh, man, look at how windswept it is. Just centuries, thousands and thousands and thousands of years of just the wind blowing, creating these just amazing, amazing shapes in the sand. It's so neat. Let's see. I think the airport has some pictures. Yeah. There's some jets. Looks like a sewing machine. Is that a sewing machine? It sure is. Maybe they have sewing machines at the airport. But yeah, what a beautiful photo that is. It's the Toyotas, right? Yep, there's the runway. The sewing machine. Beautiful little trees. It's a little oasis town. So somewhere around here is an aquifer, underground water, that allows people to settle here comfortably. This is really neat. I couldn't find anything about this, and I'm risking a lot tapping this because Google Earth is going to think I like cemeteries and it's only going to show me cemeteries. But here's an Ottoman cemetery. Only one picture. What's the story there? Clearly the Ottomans are involved here. Maybe they had a battle and that's where they buried them. I don't know. Very interesting, isn't it? Let's look at the Catholic Church and then we'll go find the oh, there's no pictures. Of course there isn't. Most of the places here don't have pictures. I thought the mosque was over by the airport. Let's see. Here it is. Mosquée de Changsu. Very pretty. I mean, for a little mosque with a minaret, for a little mosque in the middle of nowhere. Oh, they're dripping. That's some style right there. That's some swag. For a little mosque in the middle of nowhere, that's very nice. They've got the beautiful rugs and the dome skylight there. Beautiful doors. It's very nice. It's not a bad little place in the middle of nowhere, is it? So down here, here it is. This is where you can find the sand that I said irrigates the Amazon. There's no slideshows here. Everything is just, watch me find one. No, there's no pictures here because it's just sand. But so beautiful from above, isn't it? It's like super sand. And this is all mixture of leftover sediment from the bottom of Lake Borkou, part of Mega Lake Chad, the Mega Chad. But yeah, look how pretty from above, how the winds just come through for so many centuries. And you can even see that this looks like maybe some water runoff from ages ago, right? The mountains here just looks like someone just went like with some finger paints. It's so pretty. But up here you can see Emikusi. Dun, dun, dun. Let's put it in 3D. Oh, it's not really in 3D. But here you can really see the volcano, can't you? It doesn't look very high just because it's not really in very good 3D. But here's Emikusi. Yeah, Emikusi. Let's take a look. There's the center. What's left of it anyway. This big ridge here. And the craters. This is just, the Tibesti Mountains are just very special. There's beauty all around it. There's another Toyota. Such a remarkable place from above. Wow. They could definitely like film like Mars movies here, don't you think? I know they do that a lot in Jordan, but I think they could pull it off here. Little camp area there. Look at these cool rocks. I love a good cool rock. Way above. How neat. So, so beautiful. I feel like, see, there's that center crater area. And then there's I guess the town isn't in the crater, but it's right here. Emikusi. Which, of course, there's no pictures. Oh, maybe there is. It's just from above. Shots from the airplane. Let's see. I feel like I found some pictures of cool rocks somewhere around here. But I'm not quite sure where that would be. I don't expect to find anything when I tap on the towns. Because it's not like people come here and take photos and upload them to Google Earth, right? Maybe if you're ever in the area, you could do that to benefit everyone. But, yeah, this place. See, like you can see these are old water runoffs from when this used to be a stream. Maybe it still is a stream during certain times of the year when it rains. This is a mosque. Oh, there's pictures. Let's look. Oh, that's the only picture. Imagine if this is the mosque. Imagine if it's just an outdoor. I don't think they do outdoor mosques. Wouldn't that be something? Yeah, you know what? I think I just looked at this slideshow, which I think this is technically in Tibesti. But we can take a look at it, can't we? Yeah. Let's look at some cool rocks and then I'll say goodnight. Yeah, this is definitely the slideshow I saw. All of these crazy rock formations. Look at these. Just what were once huge, regular, just hunks of mountain, you know. This is what happens when windy, sandy climate hits it for millions of years, right? Thousands and thousands of years. It creates all these shapes just from it getting sandblasted nonstop. There's an oasis. Wow. Riding the camel. That's a beautiful shot. That's gorgeous. Oh, look at that big sky, too. So beautiful. Sweet camels grazing here at this oasis patch. The bestie. Wow, big canyon. This is definitely into bestie for sure. There's some famous canyons in this mountain range, but they're not in Borkou. Wow, there's some rain over there. I guess this one of the other little stigmas of the Sahara is that it never rains, which is not true. It does have rainy times in most of it. There are some parts that don't get a lot of rain, but it does for the most part. Every once in a while it rains and fills up all of these little riverbeds. It creates water flows. Look at these streaks. It's like if you're in a Zen garden, right? It's so, so pretty. The Sahara is a special place, I think. A little sad that the Sahara is ever growing and expanding down into the Sahel. Down here you can see the capital in N'Djamena. That the desert is trying to encroach on all of this beautiful green down here. And many countries in Africa are doing all they can to stop the desert from expanding south. But we'll have to see what comes of that. There's Lake Chad, which, like I said, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. Because in tomorrow's video, we are going right here in Nigeria. There's Maiduguri, which is the capital of the state that we're going to talk about in Nigeria. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. We aren't going to do any Google Earth. There's not a lot of photos in this area. Nigeria's the most disappointing country when it comes to Google Earth. There aren't nearly enough photos throughout the more not as popular states in Nigeria, which is so sad because Nigeria is amazing. But I will read you a little fact book. I'll whisper it to you just to give you a little bonus. So yeah, be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. I want to thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you're still awake. If you think that the Sahara Desert is as interesting as beautiful as I do, please give it a thumbs up and let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good night. 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 Oh, there's the rain. Do you hear it? Oh my gosh. Oh, it's so